This week's guest is none other than Nona Melkonian. Nona is a friend of mine. She's someone I work with, and she's someone many of you know reporting from the red carpet, representing businesses and charities within our community. She's a jack of all trades. She's a single mom and someone who has proven that life's most beautiful moments can be found in the pivots. Nona is someone who courageously puts herself out there, but very few people actually know her story, and that's what this episode is all about. She takes us through a very challenging time in her life. It was 2020 in the midst of COVID. Trying to hang on as a mom to 3 little kids, she was dealt the biggest battle of her life. It was a moment of change, a catalyst for growth, and an opportunity to see herself clearly for the very first time, not as a victim, but as a survivor. This episode has heart, depth, and so much inspiration for anyone who doesn't believe they can make it through. So our very first conversation with Sylvie, she reached out, she held my hand. She's like, Alina, we're going to do this. Oh, that's and it was so sweet. And so I kind of have to almost hold space equally that way for everyone who comes, because speaking about your story in such a candid, vulnerable, authentic way is not easy.
Yeah.
So thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
And for being willing to share your story, because Nona Melkonian, a lot of people know you. You are out there, you're on the red carpet, you're on social media, you have this very bubbly, beautiful personality, but people don't know your story.
No.
And up until a few days ago, I didn't know your story. And we worked together.
Yeah. And I told myself that if I ever do open up about my story, it'll be with Alina. And I just thought that to myself. Like one day, maybe one day. But if I ever do, that's the best space for something like that.
Well, I'm really honored. So welcome. And, let's talk about where you grew up, because you're not from LA. You're actually from San Francisco.
That's right. So I grew up in San Francisco. I was born in Kiev, Ukraine. And I moved to San Francisco when I was about 8 with my parents and my maternal grandparents. And I used to speak fluent Armenian. I was fluent in Russian. I still am. But as soon as I moved to SF, within a month, I replaced my Armenian with English, which is interesting because we didn't practice speaking Armenian at home. So the language was kind of gone, which is so unfortunate. But from a young age, I knew what I wanted to do. I would get in trouble for talking too much in class, for talking out of turn. I always had an opinion. So I knew that whatever I would end up doing, it would be somewhere where I can be chatty,
What was your dream?
In the beginning, I wanted to be a teacher, and then I wanted to be an actress.
Me too.
Really?
Not a teacher, but I wanted to be an actress.
Really? And so I think I was about 12 years old when I auditioned to get a talent manager kind of a thing. And I did. I ended up getting a manager, and I started getting little gigs here and there, which was so much fun, and I loved it. But it wasn't until I got a gig where I got to play myself and talk about my culture, which was very interesting. So I told the producers a little bit about my background, and they created a story from that for 4th grade students. And I talked about being Armenian, and I think, it was like an immigrant story. So at the time, it was I was 5 years out living in the States. And I really enjoyed telling that story more so than I enjoyed being a character, on camera.
What was the essence of that story?
It was just talking about the immigrant experience, my day-to-day. And at the time, I was going to KZV Armenian school. And so the crew actually came out to the school, and they filmed. And it was so much fun, so much fun. So the idea that I was being myself, opening up about my culture, I like that more than being a character. And that's when I decided I want to be a storyteller. I don't know how I'm going to tell these stories, but I like telling stories on camera. And I wanted to go into that direction.
When you were younger, growing up in San Francisco, you're half Armenian, you're half Russian.
Yes.
Which part of your culture did you feel more pulled toward?
It's interesting because most of my relatives that live in San Francisco are from my mom's side. So they're from the Russian-Ukrainian side. And so I never really felt one or the other. I would always say when I'm with my Russian side, I'm Russian. And then when I'm with my Armenian friends or my Armenian side, I'm Armenian. So I would always do that little dance. But I never felt like I belonged in either one, which was interesting.
It is interesting because I find people who end up later on in life working in the spotlight, they say the same thing, where they didn't really feel like they belonged anywhere. So they had to carve out a path that was very unique for them. Did you feel that way?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I didn't set out to do that. I just wanted to do things that I enjoyed and was good at. And the more that I did it, the more I realized I'm in the right place. I'm doing the right thing. And I really felt like I belonged somewhere. There's this community where I really do feel like I belong because I never really felt 100% of anything. When you're half of something, you don't feel like you're totally all of it in the beginning.
I can relate to that because I'm half Russian as well. And my mom's side is very Russian. Even though my mom grew up in Armenia, she just has that Russian everything, that essence, right? And so I never felt fully Armenian either. And I never felt fully Russian.
Wow.
But it was like, I guess I'm a blend. And I didn't really know what that blend meant because I didn't know too many Armenian Russians growing up.
But you grew up in LA.
I grew up in Glendale. So naturally, I acclimated more toward the Armenian side. And I'm fine with that. And I love my Armenian culture. But with you, it's a little different because you're also half Jewish.
That's right. So I say Russian.
And no one knows this.
Yeah,
I never knew you were half Jewish.
My mom is Russian Jewish. And for us, it's more of a nationality than it is a religion. But
it's a culture.
It's a culture, very much is a culture. And so I grew up with both of these cultures. And everything was accepted. And I loved that the most. Like, you could be one way, you can be another way. I was baptized at the age of 12. And my mom totally embraced that. You know, she cooks Armenian food. She speaks Armenian better than I do. So it was never a thing. But I'm sure in the beginning, you know, when my dad met her, there was that like, am I going to be embraced by this family? You know, and they absolutely loved her. And they were very, very progressive and welcoming. And that's how I grew up. And they were always very supportive. They were supportive of everything that I wanted to do. And I think that made all of the difference to have that support and have that foundation early on, you know, especially in our communities. I think because so many of us kind of come from nothing and we have to build our own, our families really push and encourage us to pursue, you know, the doctor, the lawyer, and that. And they really like push you in that direction. And my parents didn't push to that degree. And I'm very grateful for that because I don't imagine myself being as successful in those roles, in those very standard type of positions, because I was always somebody who liked to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that and kind of be everywhere. And so I'm lucky enough that kind of now I do that.
Yeah, parents' support is everything because when they see you and they acknowledge you for what makes you really special as a child, you are so much more inclined. And you walk through the world with confidence knowing my parents support this, so I can do it.
Yeah. My mom would sit for hours in my acting classes when I would have the acting classes, and she would wait for me to be done. And she was my biggest supporter. Oh, I didn't know that. That's beautiful. Yeah. That makes all the difference, right?
It does. My mom would take me to get my headshots at like, you know, those Star Search type of things.
Yes.
When I was little, but that's all we had.
Yeah.
When you're an immigrant and, you know, I don't have an uncle who works at Warner Brothers or whatever. So we had to do the cheesy route, Star Search or whatever, like those places that are 90% are a scam. But she wanted to make me happy and she saw my potential because I grew up putting on shows for the world, you know, not the world, but my community and like my neighborhood or whatever. And so they saw that in me and they wanted to nurture it. But I took myself out of the game. Did you always know that you wanted to be in front of the camera? And then how did you actually make that happen for yourself?
I knew I wanted to be on a stage performing. There was something about the performing arts that I really loved. First it was dancing, then it was singing, but I'm like, I'm not that good of a dancer. I'm not that good of a singer, but there's really something there. There was a relationship early on with the stage, with the camera, all of it, that I just felt more comfortable when the spotlight was on me. Kind of like I woke up.
Very well.
Thank you. I don't know where it came from, but the fact that my family nurtured it from an early age, and, you know, I grew up in San Francisco, I didn't grow up in LA, so there wasn't a lot of influence or inspiration around me. It was just me, my imagination. I've always been a dreamer. You know, when I was little, I would set up all of my teddy bears and I would perform for them. And my mom was like, okay, this girl's going to be some kind of actress or something. But, you know, it was this relationship that started from an early age, and I didn't know what that was at the time. But I kind of went with it.
Did you get married young?
I did. I got married young. I married, you know, essentially my first boyfriend.
How old were you?
I was 25 when we got married, but we were 17 when we met each other. It was very interesting the way it kind of happened. my senior year of high school. And I was never the girl that would like focus on boys or anything, but it was, he was also somebody who was half Armenian like me and Russian speaking. So we had that in common. And he wasn't from the Bay Area because it's such a small community that I knew everybody. You know everybody. And so when we met, I'm like, oh, you're different. And, we started dating and we really hit it off. And we were together for 7 years before we got married. And when we met, I kind of feel like, I wanted to move to LA after high school. That was kind of something that I thought about early on. And then, he was somebody who was very like, well, you have to have a game plan. You have to be grounded. Moving to LA would be such a big risk right away. Like you need to build your foundation. So I kind of started to think differently a little bit. And I'm like, okay, maybe he's right. Maybe I've got to go to school and get some licenses under my belt and do something where I have like a plan B in addition to whatever else I was doing. So, we stayed in San Francisco. And after I went, graduated from college, I graduated with mass communications, and I wanted to do broadcast journalism. And in order to do that, you've got to pay your dues. You got to start with a small town. You got to move from your comfort zone and move from San Francisco. And at the time, that wasn't something I was willing to do because that was not something that he would do with me. So I'm like, well, I can't let go of this. And I ended up getting very lucky and getting a great position in the city. And I worked for the TV department in San Francisco in City Hall. So I worked in local government, and it was very comfortable, very cushy position. But I just always knew on the back of my mind, like, I have to move to LA.
I can't see you in government.
I know, right? So it's funny, but
I think you can do anything. You have one of those very versatile personalities, and you're very quick to pivot. But I don't see you in government.
Well,
I don't see myself in government.
Yeah. But what my position was very unique, and San Francisco city government is different than other government.
Right.
So we would make original programming, original shows. And so we would highlight what some of the departments were doing in a very creative way. So we would write these short format stories, and we had an events show. We had a show about, different cultures and highlighting museums. And so when those board of supervisor meetings would run short, we would plug those 5-minute shows. And I loved doing those. And I had so much fun doing those. But you're right. Government is not like when I was interviewing the mayor or talking to the supervisors, I was curious as to like what events they're attending that weekend. Like I didn't really want to know the details of the different propositions.
Like, give me the glamour.
Yeah. I'm like, so who are you wearing? That kind of thing. I didn't really ask them that, but I wanted to. So I wanted to do red carpets, and I wanted to pursue entertainment news. I knew I would end up in LA. But at the time, I was being supportive of his dream and, putting kind of things on hold for a little while. And it wasn't until later that, we got married, we had our kids, and then my son was turning 5. And I thought, okay, he's going to start school. I think if we were to move to LA, this is the time. This is when the transition would probably be the smoothest, because he would, start school. Maybe he'll be in a new city, but it's starting a new routine. And it's like, it's now or never. That's how I felt it, because I've been putting it off. And I was starting to not feel resentful, but kind of like, if I don't do this, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. And I reached the peak of what I could do with government television and my position at the time. I wanted to do more creative projects, but you can only get as creative as you can with that work. And so that's when we moved. It was 2018. We moved to Los Angeles, uprooted our 2 kids. They were 5 and 3 at the time.
What was life like when you first moved to LA?
Well, the glitz and the glamour. And so we moved right across the CBS lot. I'm like, okay, Entertainment Tonight's right there. I can walk to work. I had it all planned out. I kind of had a map of how I wanted things to look.
You were manifesting what you wanted.
I was manifesting. I was just romanticizing this idea of being in entertainment and working these red carpets and being on E-News. But I did get another government job at Torrance City Cable.
Oh, yes. I interviewed there.
Did you?
Before I started in San Luis Obispo, my first news job, I interviewed there. I got the job, but I didn't ultimately take it.
Well, because it's all the way
I was
far.
willing to move out of LA. So
I think Aroxia interned there as
she
well.
did. Yeah,
her headshot
a
is
lot
still
of
up
people
there.
did, because it's a great way to start working in TV without moving. But it doesn't give you the real compared to when you do actually move to like Arkansas.
Right, because you're not live on TV. There's not that pressure. So I didn't have that experience, but the amazing experience that I got at Torrance City Cable is I got to edit, I got to write, and I got to produce. And it was invaluable because I use a lot of those skills today. But I would go there about once a week. The drive was like an hour and a half there and back, which was a lot. And I loved it. And then COVID happened. Everything shut down.
Well, your life also took a very big turn during COVID.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Oh, wow. So during COVID, we found out we're going to have our third baby.
COVID baby.
A COVID baby. And so, of course, during COVID, when everything is kind of shut down, it's not that bad. But it was a scary time. It was very scary. And she was born in July of 2020, my little COVID baby. And then in August of 2020, that's when things really just took a turn for me, took a change for me. I remember the date. It was August 20th. And it was actually the first day of school for the kids. And it was through Zoom. And so my middle child started kindergarten on Zoom. And my oldest started second grade on Zoom. And I'm like, okay, I've got this. And I gave myself a pep talk that morning. Gave him a high five when he went off to work. And I kept checking in, to let him know how the day is going. And I wasn't getting a response back. And I'm like, oh my God, this is
checking in with your husband.
Yes, checking in with my husband at the time. That like, okay, the first day is going well. And he didn't respond until about 2:30, until like after the school. And the message kind of stopped me in my tracks. It basically said, something along the lines of, I can't do this anymore. I don't want this life anymore. And we're going to figure out next steps, but this is done. And so honestly, that story isn't unique. That happens to a lot of women. It happens to a lot of people. But it was the circumstances that made it incredibly unique and incredibly difficult.
How so?
It was COVID. I was 1 month postpartum. And I had, 3 little ones, no family, living in the city as me. And I'm like, okay, where do I go from here? What do I do? Of course, I called my family, right when it happened. And my mom shipped my dad off on a flight within a couple hours. But in that moment, when I saw that message, I took a photo of myself. I took a photo of my reaction. And I didn't know why. But as a storyteller, we document. I'm like, there's something here. I don't know what it is, but I took a photo of myself and I've never shared it. But I still have it. And that photo motivates me.
If you could describe that photo.
I would say it's somebody who just feels so confused and ultimately just lost.
Like life just got real.
Life just got real, and everything that you knew maybe wasn't real. And you just kind of questioned everything. And you're just like, where do I go from here? And I never want to feel that way again. So from that moment, the next month, it was kind of like I didn't face the reality of what was happening. It was all a blur. But my family's like, all right, well, it's time to move back home. Let's, we're going to help you kind of figure this out and navigate. And I said, I waited a very long time to come to Los Angeles. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this. And considering that they've always supported, my family's always supported me, they're like, well, we're going to support you as much as we can. My dad would stay for weeks at a time. And so the next month, which was September of 2020, a lot happened in, the other side of the world. A lot was going on in Armenia. Mm-hmm. And there were protests happening outside of CBS. And I
remember that.
I lived like a few blocks from there. So I could hear it. And I could hear people chanting, and they were hurting. And it was a couple of days of protests. And that first day, I responded to that by just like, I'm like, what's going on? And how can I help? I didn't know how I can help. But it wasn't until that second day that something told me I need to get out there. And I'm like, my people are hurting. I'm hurting. on my own. Maybe if I go out there and we hurt together, it'll hurt a little less.
It's incredible for you to say that because during the 2020 Artsakh war, it's bombs going off, right? Not literally, but that's how it felt for us as Armenians in the diaspora. But there are also bombs going off in your life.
Yeah.
And it's not just like a small drama. This is your world collapsing, the world you know.
The world that I knew.
Someone who swore to love you now says, I'm done.
Which is interesting because when you're in it, you don't realize the magnitude of like whatever issues you have because you're just so deep in it. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I was removed that I realized like, oh my gosh, I should have saw this coming. And no, it's not normal, to walk on eggshells every day from the morning you wake up to the morning you go to bed. And so I'll still hear that voice in my head doubting me. And it's not my own voice, but it's a constant effort to silence that voice. Mm. So I said, I need to go out there, see what's going on. I grabbed the equipment that I would take with me, to red carpets. And I said, I'm going to talk to the protesters and see what it is that they want. What message do they have for the world? And that's what I did. And I kind of put it together, in a very kind of common sense way, very simply, what's going on in Armenia, what's going on with this war for non-Armenians to kind of be able to follow along because it's a very complex situation that was going on. A lot of people didn't really know the details or understand them. And so I edited that with my editing. And it kind of went viral the next day. And one thing led to another is I just got very involved in the community. And because everything was kind of at a standstill in our industry, I took to Instagram Live and I started doing fundraisers and helping. And I'm like, you're raising $15,000, $20,000 within an hour. And I felt the power that I had
in
a time where I felt completely helpless. And
you turned your pain into purpose.
Yeah.
And you found a place for yourself to do what you ultimately set out to do. And perhaps you didn't take the traditional route. But I always say God finds you in moments where you are at your lowest and he will show you a door. And if you're brave enough, if you're smart enough, which you are, you took it. It didn't look like a glamorous red carpet. Mm-hmm. It was just the streets of Studio City. But you saw an opportunity that was authentic and you dove right in. And that in itself is, I think, God's hand essentially saying, come on, I've got you. There's a whole other world for you.
So you just gave me chills. And it's funny because like you were saying, I'm not 100% Armenian. I'm 50% Armenian. I don't speak Armenian that well, but for whatever reason, I felt this calling and the community responded and they saw my value. And for a long time, I didn't know that I had that kind of a value. And it made me want to give back tenfold. And then when COVID was over, everything opened up, I continued with those relationships that I formed. A lot of the organizations, a lot of the businesses, and one thing led to another. And now that's mostly who I work with.
But going through that, you're a single mom with 3 kids. Let's be real, it's not easy. So how did your life change at that time?
It was a lot of ups and downs, to be honest. I can't say it was all easy, but I found that focusing on, the next immediate thing that brought me happiness was how I got through it. Mm. And maybe in the beginning, like I can't say that I was fully immersing myself in the pain because I think it was so big that it was hard to take in all at once. So I did it in bits and pieces. Mm. So I gave myself little things to look forward to. My kids gave me a reason, and they're my greatest inspiration for everything that I do.
Of course. I think there is so much strength that single moms carry because it's sink or swim.
Yeah.
Bottom line. And so you approach everything with just a little bit more pep in your step.
Definitely.
Because you're doing it for these little humans.
Yeah.
And that's big.
Yeah. And they watch us. And to be honest, kids are very resilient. Mm-hmm. If you make the transition drama-free for them, if you keep all the feelings out, they're going to be okay. And they're so strong. And they're so proud, like they're proud of me. My little one will play pretend and she's like, I'm getting ready to go to work. Like, mommy, it's so funny.
That's
but,
so cute.
They teach us so much.
Yeah. Our children are our greatest teachers.
Absolutely.
How did you explain the divorce to them?
It took a while because I wanted to be very careful. And it was my middle one who was 5 at the time who was asking about what's going on. And, I wanted to talk to him about it first so we could be on the same page and explain it. Mm-hmm. And it was difficult in the beginning, but because I think they were so young, they took it well.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of feelings with it. And I'm kind of grateful for that, you know?
How were you taking it? Was there a lot of grief, a lot of,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because the reality in life as you knew it, you just question whether or not any of it was real, you know? But at the same time, for about a month, I really tried to do everything I could to salvage. I'm like, okay, we've got this young family. I'm here on my own. Like, let's just figure it out. And for whatever reason, God, the universe, it just was not. It was pushing me away from that. And it was like, okay, you need to figure out your own and pave your own path. My mom would always tell me from a young age, you know, we come into this world alone and we're going to leave this world alone. You have to be strong on your own first. As important as it is to nurture your beautiful relationships, you have to have a strong sense of self. And I don't think I had that.
Do you feel you got lost in your marriage?
Absolutely. A lot of us do. A lot of us do. And I wanted, you know, I thought I had my path paved and I wanted things a certain way. And I got caught up in the details of like, okay, now we have our kids. Now we're doing this. A lot of us do that.
How life looks on the outside.
Yes. You know, and there was a lot that was already brewing from the inside, but I didn't realize the magnitude of how serious it was because we were both kind of doing our own thing. So now I'm just hyper aware of my surroundings in every way.
Is it hard for you to trust someone now?
I would think so. I would think so. Something like that really just shakes you to the core. But at the same time, I want to cling on to the positive and to the good because I want to believe that this experience is unique. You know, it doesn't happen to all of us. And I don't wish that on anyone, but it does happen. It doesn't mean that it will happen in every situation.
What did you learn about yourself in your darkest moments?
Oh, man, that's a great question. You know, I just learned that I'm so much stronger than I thought. You know, if I knew a couple years ago that I would be able to build this foundation on my own, I wouldn't believe it. And I just want other people who may be struggling or going through something in silence to know that not only is it possible to get out of it, but you can come out of this victorious as the best version of yourself.
Our grief is the catalyst for change. If we're willing to see our strength as a virtue, I mean, strength is a virtue, but if we're willing to look at what we've gone through as something here to teach us, something about ourselves or about life, you know, it's easier said than done. I get it, especially when you're going through the really tough times and you're a single mom worrying about how you're going to pay your bills. Believe me, I know. But in those darkest moments when you are on your knees and you don't know what you're going to do, a light bulb just goes off.
Yeah.
And you see the door, you see the opportunity, you see the path, you see the people, you see the energy. It just comes from somewhere. And, you know, what I'm trying to get at is, what was that moment for you like when you realized there's something else for Nona out there?
It was when I was doing an Instagram live with a military base in Armenia. And it was Khachens, the singer.
Oh, I love him. I cried so much to his music.
I know, he's amazing. So he was at a military base and we were doing a fundraiser, and the girls that he was with, which was an organization, the Armenian Hero Project, I believe, they asked him to sing. And he began singing and playing his guitar. And I just shed a tear. And I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is incredible. And I'm so grateful to be doing what I'm doing. Right before COVID, you know, right before everything kind of closed down, I had this opportunity to attend my very first red carpet. And it was this glamorous, incredible evening. And I had so much fun. But then after those interviews, after I talked to 300 people, I don't know. I talked to a lot of people that night. I was tired, but on top of that, I was a little bit underwhelmed. Like, is that what I've been romanticizing for so long? It just didn't fulfill me in the way that I thought that it did. And I wanted to do something more purposeful. And I think during that time, I was figuring out what that was. So now I still do red carpets and I still do a lot of events and I have fun doing it. But the kind of red carpets are a little bit different. And it's very purposeful work and I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah, and you do an incredible job at it. I mean, you uplift our community. And I think that's when I first got to know you. In passing, you were doing red carpets for events that I was attending or hosting, and then we kind of just became part of the same circuit in a way, right? Yeah. And we got to know each other. And so I knew who Nona is, and you became the go-to for red carpet, for, showcasing these causes and organizations and companies. And you really created a niche for yourself. No one else was doing that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It just kind of fell into it. But I really enjoyed having the opportunity to share the voices of others and be able to amplify those voices. Because this was at a time where I didn't feel like I had a voice or a voice that really mattered. And here I was representing all of these big things. And I thought that was very interesting and very special. But yeah, we met multiple times in passing, and we've had very kind of surface conversations on the red carpet. But I always kind of looked at you and said, wow, like she is just so graceful in everything that she does. And I'm sure she's got, her life is probably so perfect.
No, it was falling apart.
But that's, nobody knows that. It's one of those things. And it's kind of, it wasn't until, you came out with your podcast and I saw the teaser for what your first episode was going to be. And that's when I messaged you. And so many women related to that. But I feel like I related to it on another layer because I realized just how much courage and bravery it took for you to be able to, tell your story because you're a storyteller yourself. And when the storyteller becomes a story, it's a very delicate thing.
It's very unnerving, but I also think that we're all going through the same thing.
Yeah.
And so when you can give yourself the permission to speak your truth, you give other people the permission to speak their truth, or at least to feel what they're feeling, because it simply says we're not alone in this.
Yeah.
And what you're going through is pretty much what I'm going through. So when I would see you at events and you have this silent battle, I'm going through the same thing and we don't know that. But imagine how much more authentic the connection is when we can both say, I'm in the same boat. Even though our lives look different, I know the feeling of what you're processing right now, which is uncertainty, vulnerability. You're so scared. It's like these children are looking up to you and you're on your own to take care of them. So it's a really big thing. And so now knowing what I know about you, I have so much more compassion, so much more respect, because it's like, I know what it's like.
Yeah. And for a while, I didn't want to open up about that because I never wanted something like that to hold me back, And I thought, like, I don't want this to be a sob story. I want this to be inspiring. And it's only going to be an inspiring story when I'm at the top. And then I'm like, well, what does that mean to be at the top? Is it about like a certain job position? Is it about the amount of followers you have? Like, what does that mean?
It's the journey and how you can shine every step of the way and how you can find purpose every step of the way. And honesty is really what feels like being on top is all about, because the idea of a top of a mountain is a very arbitrary thing, right? You essentially never get there,
right?
Because the more you climb, the more you set your sights on something higher, or you decide, I want to go in a different direction. It's really the day to day, and that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
The magic for you was in that first moment where you saw an opportunity to go to the CBS lot, and from something so innocent, something really cool came through.
Yeah. And it was very special.
So the way you work with brands now, you've created essentially a business for yourself where you highlight different brands. How did that happen? And what was your tactic in approaching these companies and saying, this is what I could do for you? Because you totally carved out a niche, and it takes a special way of thinking to do that.
It's so funny, but that also happened during COVID. So I started an Instagram series at the time that was highlighting different small businesses. And in the beginning, it was Armenian small businesses because so many of them were helping back home and donating their dollars. And I'm like, well, people need to support these businesses so they not only could continue supporting, but they could stay afloat. And I thought the easiest way that we could kind of support the Armenian cause at the time was supporting Armenian businesses, supporting Armenian artists, artisans. And so it started with that. And for the city of Torrance, I actually had a show that I was writing and producing that was highlighting small businesses. So that's where the idea came from. And every week, I think it was on a Tuesday, I would highlight 4 different businesses and what they did, and talk to the owners of the businesses and got to know the face behind the brand. And it was that relationship that I realized, I'm like, it's so important for these businesses to kind of have a face and have a voice. And after everything opened up, I continued those relationships and I continued working with those brands in very different ways and kind of started doing like marketing. And that wasn't my background, but that became something that I really enjoyed doing because I saw a way that they could really grow and build themselves and brand themselves essentially. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I kind of fell into that business space.
It's about starting where you are.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times people think when I'm at a certain place, when I have this degree, that's when I can start. But no, you start where you are and that's where the magic happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's like learning as you go and you have this, great experience that you could take with you. That common sense, they don't really teach that.
No, experience is the greatest teacher.
Yeah.
And you'll never learn until you dive right in.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, starting this podcast for me was the same thing.
I would imagine.
Right? So it's a big undertaking if you want to do it the right way. It's an expensive undertaking if you want to do it the right way. And of course, if you're looking at it as a business, then you have to create an opportunity to create sustenance.
Yeah.
And that's where you came in.
That's so funny.
People don't know this, but you are actually part of this team.
I know. This feels very full circle for me right now, like being on the podcast. Yeah. But after I messaged you and said I commended you for your bravery, I think it was a couple of weeks later, you're like, Nona, what do you do exactly? Like, do you do marketing? Like, and then, you mentioned an opportunity for me to collaborate with you on this show.
Well, here's what I saw in you. I saw a go-getter. And I, at the time, needed help because I was, I think, just like 2 months in.
Yeah.
And I had secured sponsors for myself simply through my reputation in the community and people that wanted to work with me, which is huge, right?
Huge.
I've worked for that for 15 years. And I knew that there was so much potential there because one thing I learned from my friend David Guillaume, he said, always start where you are. Even if your niche and your business focus on your community, don't shy away from that. Don't be embarrassed by that. And don't think, oh, I'm pigeonholing myself within the Armenian community. We were on a walk and he said, start there, Alina. That's your market and expand from there. That in itself is $1 million business. Now, not literally for me, but I think I really got what he was saying. And I took that and I ran with it. So that's when I approached you. I'm like, you know what? If that's how we're going to do this, I want the girl who really knows this and this community. And so I approached you and I said, no, what do you think about working with me to sort of be my marketing liaison? Because not that you're a marketing person, but you are someone who's in that space.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to get creative here, let me get creative with someone who also knows how to get creative and maybe we can put our minds together. And it worked.
It did.
Right?
Yeah. And I feel like that took trust on your part too, because you could have went with like a marketing agency. Like there's things that you could have done.
It's all what you feel. And I had a feeling with you.
Yeah. And you told me that.
Like I
had a good feeling about you.
Yeah. And it worked.
Yeah.
Because essentially what we did together, we secured the future of this podcast for the next 1.5 years.
And you've built a real community, an incredible community. And I'm just so honored to be a part of that. And I'm so proud of you for everything that you've done.
Thank you.
And to continue on this journey, because like you said, it's a journey.
I think I really wanted someone with me who would understand what it's like to just live off faith.
Yeah.
Because the beginning stages of any business, the beginning stages of being a single mom, all of that is really built on the idea of faith, right? That the next day you're going to wake up and it's going to be okay. So when I started the podcast, it's essentially a train. And the train has to, keep performing. It has to do its thing every week. But in order to ensure that it's a success, you have to keep up with it. And so there was a moment where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do if I don't secure sponsors for the next few months. Because the sponsor I have now, well, they're going to expire in the next 2 weeks. So I have 2 weeks to come up with it. And sure enough, God does show up. And he delivered, for both of us, because I think he saw our commitment and our, just our pure hearts and the fact that we're doing this for all the right reasons.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's a great message for other women out there. If you're feeling lost, if you feel like all you have to go on is your faith, regardless of what your life looks like to other people, you could be the biggest celebrity and still have so much behind the scenes where your faith is being tested. But, we put one foot in front of the other and the path became clear.
Totally. Day to day. I say when you can't control your circumstances, the only thing that you can control is your reaction or your response to it. And that's so important because that dictates how you're going to get through it.
So what's life like for you now?
It's so busy.
You are busy.
So I'm involved in so many events, and I do a lot of red carpets, and I collaborate and freelance with a few online entertainment outlets. So I've got something going on almost every day. The great thing is like me and my ex-husband are now co-parenting nicely, and so we kind of have our schedule. And on the days that I don't have my kids, there's all of these things that are planned in there. But still, I like to leave a little room for myself because it's so important to kind of have that me time, whatever that is, whether it's like a half an hour in my car of just like me and my thoughts or just kind of scrolling on my phone. You know, we're all guilty of that. But you have to have that time to yourself.
For sure. What would you tell Nona in 2020 now looking back?
You got this, girl. You're gonna be just fine.
Yeah.
One foot in front of the other. Keep at it.
What would you tell Nona when she was little, growing up in San Francisco, wanting to be an actress, but her life took so many different pivots and, essentially crumbled at her feet, but she picked herself back up?
Yeah. Well, you will rise like the phoenix. It's like so cheesy.
No, but it's true. It really is true.
You just embrace those challenges and those difficult moments because that's going to be the silver lining of your life.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. What do you want the future to look like?
It's funny. I do take it day by day, but I want to continue telling stories, and they don't necessarily have to be in front of the camera. I'm very honored lately. I had opportunity to go back to Armenia last summer as an associate producer on a project. And it was my first time going back to Armenia. And we were, trying to secure brand deals and product placement for the film. And so we were having all of these meetings, but at the time that we were also having meetings, we had an opportunity to sightsee. And it was just this incredible experience. And I'm so grateful to have had that and explore Armenia in ways, now as an adult. So it's just, I'm kind of going with it. So, whether it's behind the scenes or in front of the camera, I'm kind of open to it. I've got a lot of fun projects in the works, a few that I can't share just yet, but it's exciting. It's very exciting.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
You're a jack of all trades. You're a very special woman.
Thank you so
And
much.
I think you're going to do whatever you want to do.
That means so much coming from you. It really does.
I mean it.
Thank you.
I don't say that to a lot of people because you just don't, you see their energy and it's not necessarily clear. Your energy is very clear.
I don't mind being vulnerable, and I kind of wear my heart on my sleeve. It's funny, when I go back to San Francisco, like my friends are like, how do you do it in LA? Like everyone is so fake. And I'm like, no, if you're authentic, you will find your people. And there's so much value in authenticity and just being yourself.
Yeah. That's really what it takes. And there's a lot of fake vulnerability out there or fake authenticity out there with social media. People who present their lives or present their truth, but it's not really real. And you know when it's real, when someone genuinely is just, here it is.
And it's hard to just open up and say, here it is. It's like everybody kind of has their timing to open up with it, but you earn credibility by doing that. In order to offer advice, you need to tell your story first, or else that advice really doesn't have value.
Right. And for the little girl who grew up wanting to be seen, I think you now have sort of created the space for yourself to be seen, but in a way that is truly meaningful. And it's not just being seen as this thing that could be, in a subjective way, but rather for your essence, which is you. People know you for you.
And that's such a it's such a rewarding thing to be in a position where, you're being yourself and you're helping others. And I feel like that's you have a responsibility with that. That's why I thought that whenever I do share my story, it has to be in a way where it would only continue to nurture who you are as a person and not hold you back, because you never want something to hold you back. Anytime a storyteller becomes a story, it's a fine line. You don't want that. You don't want that story to define you as well.
I struggled with that for a very long time because as a journalist, you're never the story. You're always telling the story and you're one step removed.
Right.
So to sit here and now make it about me, or at least partially about me, it's a big risk. But I find the world is moving in a different direction. And so we get to dictate how we want to fit into that narrative.
Absolutely. I love the way you said that.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. This was so fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in to Breaking Through with Alina Abervian. For our community to grow, please like and share, and also leave a review on this episode. Of course, you can find me on social media and let me know what you'd like to talk about in future episodes. Nothing is off limits, so let's have some fun.